Chapter 737, Turn the world upside down and disregard everything else. You only know how to bully the weak. Why don't you get Chen Xingyan to fight her own fights? Just because she can't beat me, she called for help. How much better than her do you think you are? If you want to insult me, you should say it to my face. You aren't any better for talking behind my back, Tang Ning struck back. There are plenty of people that talk about you. Why don't you interrogate every single one of them? After hearing this, Tang Ning decided that she'd put things to an end. After all, she had come all the way here and Bai Lin happened to be present. So, she said to Lu Che, open the door. There are a lot of people trying to eavesdrop outside, Lu Che warned. Let them watch properly, Tang Ning replied casually. Lu Che nodded and opened the door to the waiting room. Quite a few people were gathered outside, all doing the same gesture. It seemed, they were all trying to lean against the door and listen in on what was happening. As soon as Lu Che opened the door, their faces swept over with awkwardness, including the host of the broadcast show. I'm here to notify Chen Xingyan that the show will start in 10 minutes, but never expected to see Tang Ning. Xingyan, get ready. I'll handle this. Tang Ning was unaffected by the observers as she spoke in her usual calm. Tang Ning, can you give me an autograph? Yes, Tang Ning, we all like you very much. It's rare to see you, so we are a little overexcited. Tang Ning. It turned out, these people weren't here to be nosy. They simply heard that Tang Ning had appeared and wanted to get autographs. That's no problem, Tang Ning agreed. After she finished signing the autographs, one of the girls said, you're still as beautiful as ever. You don't look like you've given birth at all. That's right, you've taken extremely good care of yourself. You're really beautiful. Thank you, Tang Ning thanked them politely. Chen Xingyan wanted to remain in the room, but remembering that An Shihao had put in a lot of effort to secure the appearance for her, she had no choice but to stand up and walk out to the studio past everyone that had gathered in the room. Afterwards, Tang Ning sat on the sofa and looked at her phone without saying a word. Every now and then, a few people would come in to ask for her autograph. Tang Ning was not annoyed at all as she satisfied the requests of the television station staff, one at a time. Not only this, every time someone came in, they couldn't help but sigh in admiration. How did Tang Ning take care of herself so well that she did not show any signs of having given birth? In fact, she looked especially youthful and beautiful. Even the higher-ups in the station pretended to pass by, just so they could greet her. The waiting room somehow transformed into a meeting room as people continuously entered and exited. However, Bai Lin remained in place, too afraid to make a move as people came and went and gossiped about her. Seeing this, Bai Lin's manager interrupted, Miss Tang, our Bai. It's none of your business, Lu Che stopped the manager threateningly. The manager was helpless as she quickly shut up and pretended to be mute. Bai Lin continued to stand in the same spot. It was now her turn to be ridiculed by others. News had already spread that after she threw sewage water on Chen Xingyan, she could only stand still like a primary school student accepting a punishment, when faced with Tang Ning. No matter how long Tang Ning remained in the waiting room, Bai Lin stood in place for the same amount of time. By the time Chen Xingyan completed her show at 10 p.m., Tang Ning was still in the waiting room and Bai Lin was still standing. Chen Xingyan was a little surprised. She, of course, did not understand how smart Tang Ning's method was. As a senior, she couldn't possibly cover Bai Lin and poo, nor would she do something so embarrassing anyway. So, the best thing to do was to make Bai Lin stand around like a retard as everyone watched. She did not need to exhaust any energy to make Bai Lin's arrogance completely disappear. As for the reason why Bai Lin did not dare to move, she was much too afraid. Tang Ning did not say a single word to her, yet she did not dare to even take a step. You've finished? Remove your makeup and let's go. Chen Xingyan looked at Tang Ning and gestured that someone was still standing around. Tang Ning chuckled and replied, I didn't tell her to stand there. Bai Lin glared at the two women. But, she could only wait until Tang Ning left before she yelled at her manager, hurry over and lend me a hand. SLT. I will definitely get her back for this. Tang Ning led Chen Xingyan to her car. After they boarded, she said, I did not lay a hand on her today. If I did, I would appear unreasonable and would truly become the bully that others say I am. That would be of no benefit to you. But, she's still afraid of you. Do you know why she's afraid of me? Tang Ning glanced at Chen Xingyan and answered calmly, Because I've encountered plenty of people like her in the past. At first, I would simply endure and not say a word, but afterwards, I would always make them pay me back double. Whether it's a small matter or a big one, as long as they owe me, I will chase them down for it. Bailey Lin was afraid because she knew, when it was time for me to truly make a move, I'd be willing to turn the world upside down and disregard everything else. So, she was silent like a cicada in winter. This was the frightening thing about Tang Ning. Just a small move was enough to trigger a huge response. Because soon, news spread like wildfire. Bailey Lin was punished by Tang Ning and forced to stand still for 2 hours without making a move. This sent the public one message. No matter how powerful Bailey Lin was and how capable she was, in front of Tang Ning, she couldn't even breathe loudly. As a result, Bailey Lin's older sister, Bai Yu, felt extremely humiliated. The other reason why Tang Ning did not directly teach Bailey Lin a lesson was because Bailey Lin and Chen Xingyan were currently on the same level. Even if she taught Bailey Lin a lesson this time, she still would not acknowledge Chen Xingyan. Meanwhile, the other point that the public focused on was, of course, Tang Ning's current state and figure. Even though the staff at the television station praised her for being more beautiful than before, wasn't she still a mother? Since she was a mother, wouldn't her body just smell like milk? Chen Xingyan truly admired and thought highly of Tang Ning, because, no matter who she faced, she was capable of making them docile and obedient. After hearing what had happened, An Zhihao tried to hold back his laughter for a while, before he said to Chen Xingyan, "The suffering that Tang Ning has gone through isn't something that you can imagine. She originally fell from a high point in her career to the lowest low and experienced betrayal and schemes. Under those circumstances, any person would explode frighteningly. You may never reach the same level as her. Because you don't know how to handle provocation." Chen Xingyan thought for a moment and tested An Zhihao, "Will you always treat me this well?" "Of course," An Zhihao replied as he placed a kiss on her lips. However, he never expected that their current lifestyle would soon be flipped upside down.
Chapter 738, Li Zhihao. After Tang Ning taught Bai Linlin a lesson, it became the talk of the industry. After all, the unreasonable brat thought that she could act arrogantly just because she had a little bit of fame. So, she deserved to be taught a lesson. But, after Bai Yu heard of this, she was naturally so angry that her face turned red as she slammed her hands on the table in front of her. Although she often lectured Bai Linlin, she was, after all, her sister. By doing what she did, Tang Ning had practically thrown a slap across her face. Because, in the end, Tang Ning's actions did indeed contain an extra meaning. Since Bai Yu didn't know how to teach her sister properly, then she would have to take her place. Someone had to teach her how to behave like a normal human being. Because of what happened, Bai Yu gave Bai Linlin a phone call. But, Bai Linlin simply complained about her sufferings. "All you know how to do is cry. You are useless. Don't you know how to fight? Whatever that Chen girl wants, you fight for it as well. Don't tell me my sister doesn't know how to do this. What a piece of trash. Sis, you don't know how cheap Tang Ning was." I know. Just hearing Tang Ning's name gave Bai Yu a headache. But, she had another desire in her heart. She wanted to personally experience competing with Tang Ning. She wanted to know, in the place that she gave up and from the position that she was afraid of falling from, was Tang Ning going to live in peace? After giving birth, was it truly possible for her to maintain her fame? Later that night, Tang Ning and Mo Ting each carried a baby in their arms. They were coaxing the two rascals and trying to see which one would fall asleep first. But, the Go-Go in Tang Ning's arms, once again had a fever, throwing the couple into a panic for half the night. After repetitively trying to lower his temperature, they finally managed to stabilize it. At this moment, Tang Ning had already fallen asleep on the sofa. Seeing this, Mo Ting gently lifted her into his arms out of the baby's room. "Did I fall asleep?" Tang Ning awoke while she was in Mo Ting's arms and rubbed her eyes before she hooked her arms around his neck. "Did Go-Go have a fever because he wanted to punish me for not being at home to take care of him last night?" "Stop imagining things," Mo Ting replied in a lowered voice. "I've already made an appointment with a well-respected pediatrician. The doctor will give Go-Go a full-body checkup." Tang Ning nodded as she tilted her head and leaned in closer to Mo Ting. "To be honest, I'm already really satisfied. Look at the other men these days. How many of them offer to take care of their kids without being asked? In comparison, as long as you are home in our household, you always take full responsibility for our babies. From my childhood, I don't remember as much about my father as I do of my second uncle. So, I don't want my children to view me as someone that's never at home. Daddy Ting, you've already done a great job. Mo Ting didn't say it, but he definitely did no less than Tang Ning. Sometimes, Tang Ning even had a thought, if it wasn't because she was a woman and Mo Ting was a man, or perhaps, if it wasn't because men couldn't have babies, he would never have wanted to see the two babies come out of her stomach and torture her in such a way. So, the love she had for Mo Ting continued to build up over time because of little things like this. It was impossible not to love a man like this. In a few days, do you want me to keep you company while you film your commercial? No need, stay at home and watch the kids. When it came to English, Tang Ning was more fluent than Mo Ting. And when it came to filming and other concerns on set, Tang Ning was well experienced. She didn't need his guidance. So, it wasn't necessary for her manager to be present. What she needed was an assistant to handle miscellaneous matters. But, ever since the incident with Yanshu, Tang Ning had not settled on a permanent assistant. However, I must say, you're not a very qualified brother. Do you not like Xinyan? Hearing this, Mo Ting was stunned. A moment later, he replied, she needs to practice on her own. The world doesn't revolve around her. Even if we place the opportunity to become an international superstar in front of her, if she doesn't come to a self-realization, she will never fit the role. Fine. I guess what you're saying makes sense. Tang Ning nodded in agreement. After all, this was exactly how she grew to where she was today. In the past, no matter how people tried to convince her, she never listened. She was so stubborn that she'd keep persisting until she ran into a dead end. In the end, it was because of the incident with Han Yufan that she finally woke up. Go, have a bath. After entering the bedroom, Mo Ting placed Tang Ning down and patted her on her backside. Tang Ning was stunned for a couple seconds before she ran around behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. Have we experienced a car quake before? Huh? I want to continue compensating you. Tang Ning's cheeks flushed red. Mo Ting turned around and lifted her back up in his arms as he hurried towards the door. Are you in that much of a rush? What if the kids wake up? They were, after all, parents now. So, everything they did, they would have to take their sons into consideration. Tang Ning didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So what if she gave birth? Did it mean that her life would come to a standstill? Even though she was the mother of 2 children, she still had the choice to live a passionate life with Mo Ting. After the couple reached the underground garage, Mo Ting selected their SUV. This was the only car with a comfortable amount of space. Although they were still at home, Tang Ning found her heart was racing as she stepped into the car. It felt like they were in a secret relationship. If this isn't exciting enough for you, we can drive the car out. Hush. Tang Ning couldn't wait anymore as she shut him up with a kiss. After Bai Linlin was taught a lesson by Tang Ning, Chen Xinyan's situation improved a lot. After all, Tang Ning represented Mo Ting and Mo Ting represented Hyrule. As a result, Chen Xinyan finally let out a sigh of relief. After attending an event, she returned home with much lighter and relaxed footsteps. However, on that particular night, as she returned to Enzihao's apartment, what was waiting for her was not Enzihao, but Yunzhen's parents. Are you guys waiting for Zihao? No, today is the anniversary of Yunzhen's death. Zihao has gone to visit her grave. We have been waiting for you, Father Yun explained as he supported Mother Yun. Oh, then come inside, Chen Xinyan invited as she opened the door. After they entered, she poured them each a cup of good quality tea. But, not only did Mother Yun not accept it, she directly knocked it over and said, although I don't know what your identity and background is, I must ask you to leave Zihao. Stay away from our son-in-law. From the moment that Zihao agreed to visit Yunzhen's grave, I knew that he only has her in his heart. He can't possibly like you. If you're smart, you should leave before you make things difficult for yourself. Mother Yun's words weren't very nice. Plus, this was the first time Chen Xinyan had experienced a situation like this. After all, this was her first love. So, she didn't know how to manage the situation. Or, to be exact, She didn't know what to do. I think I should give Zihao a phone call. What phone call? Mother Yun grabbed Chen Xinyun's phone out of her hand and threw it on the floor, smashing it to bits.
Hit the like, thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for listening.